All right, welcome to another episode of Behind the Agency. Today I have Chris Morbitzer here. He's the CEO of Northbuilt. Thanks for coming on the show today, Chris.
Thanks, David. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, I wanted to start off. I know you've run an agency for quite a while, and you've had a lot of experiences over that time. And one of the first places I wanted to start was really just kind of get into what did in the early days of your agency, what did saying yes to everything end up costing you in the long run?
Yeah, so Northfield started early 2020, basically right at the same time COVID started, which was a lot of fun. We actually weren't even called Northbuilt at the time. We started as Craft Coterie. That was our name. And it was my partner and I started it. We were software developers. We were looking for what was next for us. We had worked together prior to this. Actually, he was my partner. Aaron was my boss. So that's a fun story. But we were looking for what's next, and we thought, well, we both are software developers. We both know how to make software. We both like doing it. So why don't we make a run doing this for others in an agency model? And we had worked for other agencies in the past. There were things we didn't like about the industry generally. And so we came in also with this idea of we want things to be different. We want to be focused on craftsmanship and doing things with care and excellence and quality. I think that's everybody's dream. That's every person's dream who has a skill that they want to bring to market. They want to do what they do with excellence, and they want to wow their clients, and they want to bring great value to the world and leave an impact, make their mark. And that was us as well. And so that's why we called ourselves Craft Coterie, which, as it turns out, doesn't resonate with any buyers at all. People are like, craft code, like craft beer, like craft, like what is this? And
Yeah.
and we're like, well, it's like code, but better. It's like quality code. And people are like, but does it still work? Like, does it work the same way? Well, yeah, of course it works even better, right? And they're like, yeah, but I don't see the difference because I don't see the code. What I care about is this mobile app or this integration or this software application that I want built. I just need it to do the thing, solve the problem, do the job that I need it to do. And that's it. And I, as the buyer, don't really care about the quality of the code, except how that might impact me later from a business perspective. And so for us, we didn't have any narrowing that was meaningful to the buyer. And we were just essentially to your question, just saying yes to whoever had money and wanted something done. And it turns out quality code didn't matter to people. It was the outcome that solved their need is what mattered.
Yeah. It's almost like that's like quality code is supposed to be table stakes probably in their mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, who are you to us? Like, basically, I think maybe some of the issue is who you were trying to be in the market. Like, it was too broad at that point.
Oh, absolutely. No narrowing on an audience whatsoever. Anyone who wanted to pay us, we were gladly taking their money. And especially in that first year during the lockdowns, during COVID. And if you remember those first few months, there were blanket hiring freezes across almost all organizations. And so folks who needed to staff up on software development weren't able to. And they were looking to contractors, freelancers, agencies to help them fill that gap. And so that actually was helpful for us, but it meant we were just pulling down whatever people had for us. And it meant it could be a mobile app one day. It could be a web-based browser game the next day. That was a lot of fun, actually. It could be an integration between MailChimp and their CRM the next day. Very different businesses, very different use cases. And there were a couple problems that came from that. actually probably a lot more, but two that really stick out in my mind. And one being that we were literally doing something different every day, which meant that context switching meant we couldn't really go deep and specialize and actually fulfill our dream of being software craftspeople. We couldn't actually do that because we were an inch deep and a mile wide on the types of software applications that we were building and what we chose to support. The other problem that came from that is that without the narrow tailoring on the applications, we weren't able to speak specifically to people's problems and understand their business, even take time to understand their business and industry, because every customer of ours was in a completely different industry. Someone was in a restaurant space, someone was in a clothing manufacturing, somebody else was in health education. Like it was wildly different. And that meant we couldn't become a thought leader or a strategic partner for our customers, which meant we were just the software vendor. They paid us by the hour, and they're like, when they don't need us anymore, or they find a cheaper alternative, or they want to switch, like there was nothing really sticky about our services. And we were always being shopped and being compared to our next competitor for, are we matching on rates? We are, because anyone else can, in theory, deliver the exact same service we were doing. And there was nothing special we were bringing to the table.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I like to tell people is if you're not intentionally differentiating on other things besides, beyond the table stakes sorts of things, then people are just going to assume that you're going to differentiate on price, meaning you're going to be the cheapest option. Right. And that's not really where you want to be. Like, if anything, you want to be increasing your pricing power, not decreasing it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I know you scaled up because of, all this work that you had. And then you had to kind of deal with a painful, more of a scale back. Can you talk about, like, I guess the circumstances around that and, what that whole experience kind of forced you to do?
Yeah. That was a few years ago now. And we had pivoted by that point to Northbuilt, and not yet gotten clear on positioning or messaging, but we started to figure out that our best customers were in some specific segments. For us, that was manufacturing, life sciences. And for, we didn't quite know then why, but we knew that for some reason we were more efficient and more successful at delivering for our customers in those industries versus the others. And so Northbuilt was a brand that we knew would resonate with these people. And that's when we started this exercise of starting to position and tailor who we spoke to more effectively. And it was effective. We were growing, and we started to see the early signs of success. And we were thinking, this is going to be hockey stick, right? Like I'm starting to see a little growth, and boy, it's just going to take off. We're going to be great. And so we scaled up to meet the anticipated growth, which I'm not going to say that is a bad idea generally or for everybody. I don't know anyone else's unique circumstances, but it seems to me, in hindsight, that a services business, it's basically all we do is, provide skilled labor to solve a problem, right? We don't have inventory. We're not a product. We're not SaaS, where we have even a software product. Like that's not what we're doing. We're doing work for hire in almost every case. That as services business, it is tough. It is tough to make it work when we are scaling for future demand, or attempting to scale our team for future demand for a business that, and I know there's some debate in the agency world on this, but for a business model that does not actually scale. It grows, but there aren't really a lot of economies of scale in our industry. And actually, the experience that I hear from others who are ahead of me in my growth journey today, and also when I look back at my own experience, is that the economies of scale actually get worse as agencies get larger. Like sometimes margin actually decreases the larger
Yeah.
an agency is, and from a top line perspective. And so we were experiencing that phenomenon, but not realizing that that was what was happening to us, because we thought, oh, this will be like a product company or a SaaS company. The bigger we grow, the better this will be. So let's just staff up and let's just go for it. And we were overloaded. We were top heavy for sure on our team. We had structures in place we didn't need. We were premature on process optimization. We did end up optimizing the wrong processes because we didn't know. We didn't take the time to carefully vet what we were doing and make sure our delivery was aligned with what we set out to do, who we set out to be. And it came to the point where I had my fourth kid a few years ago, and are still our youngest to this day. But I took a couple weeks off, and I came back, and I looked at the financial report for the month while I was gone, and I got that as soon as I came back, and I realized, well, shoot, we're out of money. The growth we had planned for didn't pan out. There is no more money left. We're done. Unless we make big changes. And we did. And we had gone quickly from me and my partner, so two of us, and we had gone within a 1-year period to a team of close to 10.
Oh, wow.
And probably the revenue really to support half that, honestly. And when I realized we were just totally out of cash, there was nothing less, we were tapped out. I stayed up all night and made 10 different spreadsheets, each of them having their own little smite buttons on them. Like, if I cut this department, if I cut this spend, if I cut this, just whatever it was, it's like, I got to make this work somehow. And I remember the sun was starting to come up 5 or 6 in the morning. And I'm like, okay, I think I can finally call my partner now. He's probably starting to wake up. And I called him and I said, like, hey, Aaron, do you see what I see? He's like, yeah, I see what you see. And we picked up the phone and made hard decisions that day, and went down to a team of 3.
Wow.
Yeah, that was hard. That was hard.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think in any sort of experience like that, you learn some lessons about how you want to do things kind of when you go to rebuild. Mm-hmm. So can you talk a little bit about what that made you kind of be more deliberate about when it came time to, restart?
Yeah. Well, we took some time to lick our wounds. That's for sure. and to think back, what did we miss? What did we do wrong? And I alluded to some of it earlier. There's some more tactical things. This business doesn't scale, right? This business grows, but it doesn't scale. And there's ways of growing effectively and making sure we're not outrunning our headlights. Yes, all of that. But we thought more carefully about our strategy too. It gave us the chance to think, like, not just the tactics of the business, but are we even running the right business? Are we running the business we wanted? Paired with this, we, I'd say coincidentally to this event in our business, we also were dealing with a very sour breakup with a very large enterprise SaaS company, who I won't name, but is almost universally hated in the world. And they were threatening to sue us over money that they said that we owed them, that we didn't, whatever. And it caused us to realize, what are some of the decisions we made when we were growing this business the first time and doing it incorrectly? What are the decisions we made that led us into this, very painful dispute with one of our former vendors? And we realized how much values matter. And I know there are a lot of businesses that run on EOS, the book Traction, right? And they talk about values, core values that matter so much. Hiring, firing, rewarding your entire team by values, making every decision by values, by the heart of the business. And we realized that's what had been missing. We had given lip service to values, but the decisions we were making were not values first decisions. They were money first decisions. And it turns out the money wasn't even there. Like, we weren't even good at that. So we said, look, if we're going back, and this is our reset period, let's make sure that everything is values aligned. Every financial decision we make is aligned with our core values, which for us, by the way, is family, craftsmanship, and conscientiousness. That every decision we make is aligned with our 3 core values. That, and we did actually reevaluate our core values and make sure that they were right for us too. Every team member we have, hiring, firing, rewarding, is going to be aligned with our core values. And every vendor we work with, this is an unusual one, I find, is going to be aligned with our core values. It means we use a CRM that like no one has ever heard of, because we ditched the big name CRM we were using before, because I realized if push comes to shove, they aren't values aligned with us, and they aren't going to treat us any better than this other vendor we're currently in a legal dispute with. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I found, like, I did a lot of research and I found some no-name CRM based in the UK. They're not no-name. They're actually really great. Capsule CRM. I'll shout them out because I love them. Based in the UK. It's Capsule because they're based in the UK. They're wonderful. But what really stood out to me is they are values aligned with our business. And I know if push comes to shove, they're going to have our back because we share the same values. Doesn't matter that they have the most bells and whistles of any CRM product we've evaluated. No, it doesn't. Like, it stinks that we don't have all the features of HubSpot, let's say. But you know what? It meets our minimum requirements. It gets the job done. And I know they are values aligned and we can grow our business with them. So, and I could name many other stories just like that, where values are driving the decisions we're making today, much more than pure money motive.
No, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, when I talk to people about kind of what direction they want to pivot, if they've been serving a bunch of different clients and they're like, well, we could just double down around these clients that maybe bring in the most money for us. It's like, well, don't jump to that conclusion right away. Like, are they clients that you align with, across a range of qualities? Yes, they might be the highest paying client, but like, does your team enjoy working with them? Have you driven really good outcomes for them? Like, there's so many different sorts of things to evaluate them on beyond just the money. And it's good to think in terms of, hey, if I was just working with a whole bunch of clones of this client, 10 years from now, would I be like hating myself, or would I be like really fulfilled?
Exactly right.
Yeah. You have to think long-term about, like, is this going to take me to a place where I'm going to be happy with where I end up, And when you just evaluate based off of money, a lot of times you're like, oh yeah, I made a bunch of money, but I'm just grinding and I'm just burned out. And that's the last thing you want.
And most people think of the image of the golden handcuffs in its context of exit planning, but the golden handcuffs, that image can apply to so much long before we're thinking about an exit. In the clients of ours that are the highest revenue are not always the highest margin, sometimes not even the highest gross profit, from a dollar perspective, just simply because if they're not exactly in our sweet spot, if maybe they're on the periphery, and we're still willing to service them and work with them and all of that, but they're not exactly in our sweet spot, they may actually cost more for us to service them. even though they're asking more of us and we're charging more. And from a top line perspective, they look like one of our biggest clients. But when you actually look at the gross profit we receive from them, that it may not be the greatest from our entire book of business.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, you talked about this kind of scale down and then scale back up, or I should say scale up prematurely and then more of a scale back. And you mentioned that like you were still kind of dialing in your positioning at that point.
Mm-hmm.
At this point now, you've dialed it in even more, I believe, just from our conversations. Can you talk a little bit about how that's impacted kind of your growth from here, like, and lead quality, like sales conversations, that kind of side of things?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, after that big scale back, we took about a year to reset and get things righted again, and we did, and we began to grow again, somewhat naturally, but it was definitely at a more natural pace, right? That's for sure. And we got to a point where delivery was no longer our biggest issue, but this is so common among us agency owners, right? It's where do I actually find the leads? How am I actually getting new business? That's not just word of mouth and referrals. Right?
Yeah.
And we're committed not to outrunning our headlights, for example. And so that meant not over investing in sales and marketing beyond what our budget could bear. But certainly we didn't want to under invest in that either. And it became a question of, where do we invest when we're investing in sales? Where are those dollars most impactful? And realizing we don't have an answer to that question. Like, I honestly have no clue. I could throw money at ads, but even what are the keywords I'm targeting? What are the channels? Where are these going to land? I don't know. And the only way to answer that question is to know who my audience is, who do I want to speak to, and where do they want to be spoken to, and how. That's messaging, that's positioning, that's all of that. And so we engaged with a consultant to help us refine this piece that was missing for us, and take what felt like a big question mark, a big unknown, and say, well, we've gotten as far as, these are the kinds of clients we think we like, and to dial in, okay, but what are their problems in their industry? Don't even think about software or technology. Just think, what are the big problems they're facing? Now, where is there an intersection with their problems and what our skills, what we are able to solve? Where is that intersection? Where do you place yourself that is different within that intersection than others who have chosen to play in that space, right? What do we do that is meaningful to our audience that's different? And so for us, like, we're 100% US. That's meaningful to our audience of mostly Midwest manufacturers, okay? Because they also are made in America, and that's meaningful to them and their business and their customers. And so for us, being made in America means a lot to them. That isn't going to mean a lot to many others. In fact, when others, especially in software, when others hear 100% US, they're potentially thinking it's going to cost a lot more. Well, it does actually, it potentially, compared to rates that you might find in the global market, American developers are more costly. And so we're not competing on price anymore, but we are competing on a value or a differentiator that is meaningful, very meaningful to our own customers, because it's, in many cases, one of their own differentiators when they are going out and competing in their own markets.
Yeah, so they're going to be more willing to, pay that extra cost because that is part of their values. Like, it means more to them.
Right. And recognizing that even our customers have to be values based for us, right? And that's part of identifying, like, who do we target? When we talk about positioning and messaging, it like firming up who that is, what we say, the way we say it, all starts with, are we aligned with family, conscientiousness, and craftsmanship? And one of the reasons I said at the time, we weren't sure why we seem to have success with manufacturing, like Midwest family-owned manufacturers, for example. One of the reasons we have such great success with them is that Aaron, my founder, and we share that background, so we understand the industry in our own growing up stories, and share the same values that the leadership of those companies tend to share in their own personal lives. And because of that values alignment, that smooths over so many potential delivery issues we might have, just having that fundamental understanding of the way the world works and the way we do business together.
Yeah. Has I think you mentioned working with a consultant. Has that helped you kind of get more clear on, where you want to be talking to your ideal clients and kind of what you need to do to go to market?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for us, the eye-opening piece, I mean, we engaged with a consultant mostly because I didn't have time. Like, we were still small. At the time, we were still small enough that I was involved in delivery daily, right? And that's no longer the case today. But at that time it was. And it was like, okay, where am I going to carve out the time to do this important work and not drop commitments that I've made to my customers? So that there was that tension, and it forced us to look outside. I'm so glad we did, because I not only didn't have the time, which I did recognize, but what I didn't recognize was that I didn't have the skills or expertise either to do this. I mean, I don't have a sales and marketing background. I'm learning on the fly. Aaron and I were foolish enough to think that because we're software developers, we're going to know how to run a business doing software development. It's like, no, running a business is its own skill entirely.
Seriously.
And it's been a wild crash course, just soaking up all the knowledge we can from many different resources. And that's been a fun journey. But one of those is, how do you do sales? How do you do marketing? And we know enough now to be dangerous, but engaging with somebody who, in our case, our consultant had experience at multiple business services agencies before, at multiple B2B SaaS companies, and now is running his own business where he had a clientele of B2B technology businesses. And it was like, oh, okay, you really understand the types of challenges we are facing. And part of that for me, by the way, was that the consultant we worked with had positioned himself to target specifically agencies that were like us, right? So that was
right?
Trust. There was this instant transfer of trust that happened that says, oh, you understand me because your messaging. Now, I didn't have the words to say this, but I intuitively recognized it. The words I'm seeing on your website, the words you say to me during this conversation, you are repeating back to me the things I already feel in my heart without me having to have said it to you first, because you understand my industry and my circumstances so well that you're speaking right to the problems that I have. And that is immediately going to build trust. That's what happened, right? And so we worked with this consultant. We got very specific on the problems we solve. We got very specific on what makes us different in ways that are meaningful to our ideal clients, target clients. And we got very specific on the messaging and the words that we say. And we actually built out a whole messaging architecture. It's really wonderful, because whenever I need new copy for the website, whenever I need new copy for a brochure, whenever I'm writing an email, whenever I'm going on an industry podcast, I know how to say the things we say without bumbling over them, because we've asked our clients, we've asked them where they go, we've asked them what their problems are, what they're struggling with, and the ways they talk about their problems. And so I repeat it back to them, their own language, and immediately they feel that same trust with me the way I did with my consultant.
Yeah, no, I mean, that works so well. I remember, I've had people reach out to me who are not in the exact vertical that I'm targeting. Like I say I work primarily with dev agencies, But a lot of the problems with the dev agencies struggle with overlap with what marketing agencies and other types of agencies struggle with.
Yes.
And I've had people from other types of agencies reach out, and they look at my site and they're like, I know you focus on dev agencies, but everything you're describing is also stuff that we're trying to solve. Would you consider working with us too?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that kind of, I think, solves for another problem that I think a lot of agency founders are afraid of when it comes to positioning. They hear the advice, oh, you need to niche down. And it's like, yeah, but what if I'm leaving some money on the table by not, by saying no to somebody else? And what I tell people is, look, you don't need to say no to other people if you need that to keep the lights on. But you do need to be really focused with like what your website says and what you're going to market with. If you're posting on social, like you need to be really targeted with that content. If people come to you because you look like you can solve their problem too, even though they're not strictly in that bucket, there's nothing keeping you from saying yes to them.
Oh, right. And
Unless you're at capacity or something.
Yeah, absolutely. We do the same thing, right? Like we still will do the mobile app for a startup, but that's not our positioning at all. We're all about building, supporting, maintaining custom software applications for Midwest mid-market manufacturing. Okay. So if you're a startup founder and emptying your personal savings for this idea that's going to make you rich, I might caution you first. Tell you it's probably not a good idea. but if you are convinced, and I don't feel terrible about it, if I at least see a glimmer of hope, then I'll work with you too. Right? We'll work with you. We'll make that happen. If you've got other ideas that are a little outside, if you're in an industry that's a little outside of our sweet spot, right? It's not quite bullseye. Yeah, we have all sorts of clients in other industries that aren't offended that we specialize in a different industry than theirs, because they're just happy that we know our stuff and we know what we're doing. And getting tight on our messaging for one industry actually gave even people in different industries confidence that we knew what we were talking about, because we were able to speak more specifically about the value that we deliver in ways that even outsiders are able to recognize.
Yeah, I think that's so huge and under promoted. Like I don't hear a lot of other people saying that, but it's something I've experienced firsthand, and I'm a big believer in. So, one last question I wanted to kind of ask is just, you got clear with your positioning. How did that change your sort of go-to-market day-to-day activities? Whether that's like events, outreach, your offers, your pricing, kind of all the pieces that work together.
All of it came from that foundation. All of it did. And it's this funny paradox. We've unearthed a lot of paradoxes in this conversation already. I mean, not to mention you mentioned earlier, if I may tangent for a second, people's fear that if I narrow my addressable market, there's less out there. The pie is smaller. And so if I'm not winning business now, how am I going to feed myself later if I'm intentionally narrowing this segment of my audience? Well, it's funny because I think of it almost like again, this is paradoxical, but I almost think of it like a depth graph, right? Like a line or a bar chart, where if you're up against if you're a generalist and you're up against specialists, the depth of my knowledge as a generalist, let's say, it doesn't go very deep across all industries. So you've got a bar chart with all industries, and my relative depth for all of them of knowledge and industry expertise, and therefore ability to solve their problems, is small, right? It's shallow, inch deep, mile wide, right? And so I'm going up against specialists in every industry, unless you're in like a totally brand new technology where there are not specialists yet for industries. And I don't know what technology that is. Let me know, because I want in.
Yeah.
Unless you're in some field like that, there's a specialist in every industry that's doing the exact same services that we are doing, right? And so if we are not specializing for anyone, a prospective customer is going to look at us, and we have not a lot of expertise in their industry, but we can do the thing, I guess. And we're up against a specialist who's very deep. That bar chart, that goes really deep for them. And they look at them and they say, oh, they know me so well, I'm going to go work with them. And so the paradox is, we think we're maximizing our chances of success by keeping the pie big, by messaging to everyone. But in doing so, we end up having compelling messaging for no one relative to our competition. And so we end up getting no business, none at all. We don't speak to them. But when we narrow down and can go deeper, that's when we start to actually win deals, because we become that player that has the depth, that has the knowledge, the expertise. And that's been our experience as well. I think bringing it back now to event participation, which you mentioned, because we've talked about this, that is one of our go-to-market channels or strategies is event participation in person. Why? Well, because when we looked at our differentiators, we want relationship, long-term partnership. This is something that's very important to us. It aligns with our values. It aligns with our customers' values. That's part of our positioning. Well, where do these people go to meet others? And so we found there are in-person events, and not just trade shows, like membership associations, where you actually have to buy in and participate. You can't just like buy a membership and hope it works, or sponsor an event here and there. Like I've really got to participate. We belong to 3 or 4 membership organizations that are specific, highly specific to the industries we serve. And I'm serving on committees. I'm serving on boards. I'm volunteering to set up events. I'm volunteering to help out these nonprofit associations where all of the membership are my potential customers. And I'm doing it selflessly, because what is service except to give? What is service except to love? That's what business is, right? In the end. And so I'm doing it without expectation of return, but we know, of course, the return will come. But I know all of this from understanding that I'm serving a very specific segment of the market, and understanding what do they want? What do they think about? What do they care about? How do they do business in the world? And I'm saying, okay, that's how I'm going to do business in the world. That's how I'm going to see the world, like they do. And I'm going to show up at the events that they show up at. And I'm going to participate in the organizations that they participate in. And I'm going to make myself seen and heard in the places where they already are. And I know this because I'm not trying to serve the entire world. I'm trying to serve a group, honestly, of like a few thousand people. That's it.
Well, and the thing is like when you get that, when you kind of figure that out, and say you go to a conference one year and it's like you're the new guy, maybe that's not going to translate into some new business. But then you come back the second year and it's like, oh, it's you again. Like you meet some new people, and then like by the time it's the third year, it's like, oh, hey, it's you again. Like, how's it going? Like you're catching up, and you're just like, you're part of the community. Mm-hmm. And I think especially at that point, it's like you've essentially kind of created a warm community of potential leads that, not everyone's going to be in market for what you do at the same time, but you're kind of going to be top of mind when their need does come up, and you've positioned yourself well to be the top of mind person.
That's exactly right. And I found that the smaller the room I'm in, so to speak, the more likely it is that I'm the only person there who knows anything about high tech, about technology, about right now AI, about data, about custom software. I am the expert in the room. And I genuinely am. If I were in a big room, I would also be the expert in the room. I believe that. I believe in the skill that I'm offering, right? But when I'm in a big room, there's probably 5 or 6 other people who are equally skilled as I am, frankly speaking, right?
Yeah.
And now there isn't anything that's necessarily differentiating me from them within this big room. But in the small room, I could be either the only person or one of 2 or 3 people that have the skill that I'm offering, that have the expertise. And so it's easier to have these conversations. And people naturally walk up to me and say, oh, we're thinking about AI because it's 2026. Now I'm thinking about AI. Tell me about AI. And I'm able to offer my take, and my take is authoritative because I've been there for years and I've built up the trust and I understand them and I know who their family are and I know where they live. And
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, for sure. Well, yeah, I feel like there's so many good takeaways from this. I really appreciate you coming on the show and kind of telling a lot of your story. I think it'll resonate with a lot of agency founders who are struggling with some of those same sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
If either a fellow agency founder or something like that would like to reach out to you and talk with you, or somebody needs some software built, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, well, my name is Chris Morbitzer. I'm active on LinkedIn. You can always find me there. You can also reach me through our website, northbuilt.com, northbuilt.com.
Awesome. Well, Chris, thanks again for coming on the show. This has been a blast, and I'm really excited to stay in touch.
Yeah, likewise. It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Of course.